All right, let's get right into it. We usually think of high intelligence as, I don't know, knowing a bunch of facts or being able to solve super complex problems. But what if the real sign of a powerful mind isn't what it says, but what it chooses to hold back? Today, we're going to explore the psychology behind the strategic silence of some of the smartest people out there.
I mean, it's a question you've probably asked yourself, right? You're in a meeting, maybe a debate with friends, or just a casual chat, and that one person you know is brilliant is the one saying the least. So what is going on in their head? It's a really fascinating puzzle.
And this is the core idea we're going to unpack. Their silence isn't empty space. Nope, it's an active choice. Psychology actually shows us that high intelligence changes how a person sees the world, and because of that, it completely changes what they feel is necessary or even useful to say out loud. So, first up, let's talk about their really unique view of social interactions. For a lot of highly intelligent people, a conversation isn't just an exchange of words. It's more like this intricate system of patterns and motives and all these unspoken rules.
Okay, so here's the first thing they're probably thinking but not saying. Because of their knack for pattern recognition, they can often see exactly where a conversation is headed, like within moments. They spot the conversational scripts, the same old arguments, and the likely outcome, but they don't call it out. Why not?
This right here illustrates the difference perfectly. While most of us are hearing a debate about facts and figures, they're seeing something else playing out. They see a battle to protect someone's identity, a defense of their ego. They perceive all the emotional stuff hidden behind the logical claims. And once you understand that they see this game beneath the words, their silence makes perfect sense. I mean, blurting out, "Hey, I know how this ends," would just sound arrogant, right? It would push people away. They get that you can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into in the first place. So instead of trying to win a game that isn't really about logic, they often just choose to observe or check out. Next, let's look at their ability to think way, way ahead. You've probably heard the saying that they're playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. Well, this really comes down to their natural ability to simulate what's going to happen in the future. And this is the second thing they think, but almost never say out loud. They can look at a really small decision, or a daily habit, or some minor trend, and they can mentally fast forward it. They can project its likely impact months, years, even decades down the line. It's this kind of abstract forecasting that just happens for them, almost automatically. This is basically how they see the world. A tiny habit today doesn't seem like a big deal, but they see the compounding effect. In a year, suddenly it's a trend. In 5 years, it's a pretty significant outcome. And in 10, it could lead to a completely different life. They're connecting these dots long before anybody else even sees them.
So why do they keep these insights to themselves? Well, it boils down to this really simple but powerful psychological truth. Nobody likes being told that what they're doing right now is going to lead to a problem later. It feels like criticism, you know? So instead of announcing their predictions and just getting a bunch of pushback, they quietly observe and adjust their own behavior.
Okay, let's shift gears to something a bit more personal. Let's talk about the internal experience of having a mind that just works at a different speed. This can sometimes lead to this feeling of being out of step with pretty much everyone. Psychologists actually have a name for this: asynchronous social pacing. Basically, it means your brain is processing information, making connections, and jumping to conclusions way faster than a typical conversation can keep up with. It can feel like you're mentally 3 steps ahead while everyone else is still on step 1. And yeah, this experience can lead to a really profound sense of isolation. It's not because they're arrogant or they don't like people. It's because finding other people who operate on that same wavelength, who can dive into that same depth of thought at the same speed, is just incredibly rare. And looking at it this way really drives home the challenge. The vast majority of social interactions are pretty surface level, and that's totally fine. But for someone who really craves those deep, compatible connections, navigating a world where those are only a tiny fraction of the whole, well, it can feel pretty lonely. So what do? They adapt. They don't often talk about this feeling of loneliness or being out of sync. Instead, they kind of translate it into more socially acceptable phrases. Things like, "I'm busy with a project," or "I'm just really focused right now," can actually be code for needing to retreat to a space where their mind can just operate at its natural speed, without all that friction. So where does this all leave us? Let's try to bring these ideas together. What we're seeing is that high intelligence is so much more complex than just raw brain power.
It really involves a deep understanding of social and psychological realities. So we've basically covered their internal monologue, right? Recognizing predictable patterns, seeing the ego behind arguments, forecasting the future, feeling a little out of sync with others, and even understanding the loneliness that can come from that. And these aren't judgments, they're just observations from a totally different point of view.
And this brings us to the most crucial point, the big takeaway. True intelligence isn't just about what you know, it's about what you notice. It's about seeing those underlying patterns, the hidden motives, the future consequences. And often, the greatest wisdom lies in knowing when to speak up and when to embrace the power of silence.
And that leaves us with a final thought, something for you to reflect on. We all have moments where we see things that maybe others don't. Maybe it's a pattern at work, a dynamic in our family, or a truth about ourselves. The real question is, what do you notice but choose not to say? And why?